Good morning. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And here's Charlie with the announcements.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. It's January 8th, and it is a green day. Mrs. Yuri C. Block, health class, please report to the upstairs of the South Church for class today. Miss Greenstone's D Block class is reminded to meet in South Church today. Student Gov will meet immediately after school today in Fuller Basement. Please see Mr. Ryan or me with any concerns or questions. Happy birthday today to Isla Zamora and Leo Willison. Happy birthday. And then today for sports, we have JV and varsity boys basketball, home versus Mount Mansfield at 5:30 and 7, and JV girls and JVB boys basketball at Woodsville at 5 and 6:30. And that's it. Have a good day today.
Thank you, Charlie. I have a late announcement. Varsity girls basketball got a win on the road versus CVU behind a phenomenal team defensive stance, bringing home the victory 48-37. Addie Ely led all scorers with 15 points, Anna Abear with 11, Emily Clark with 10, and Brooke Bogle with 8. The team improved to 3-1. JV girls basketball jumped into their game against CVU from the start and never let up, ending with a 52-28 win. Nice girls basketball. Well done. Awesome. So happy Thursday, everybody. This morning we have a very special treat for you. So our guest is a St. Johnsbury Academy alumna from the class of 2004, who was an athlete during her time here, but who found her true passion only about 10 years ago when hiking very quickly in the mountains. She has become a unique and extraordinary professional athlete with an inspiring personal story and a life where she uses her mind and body in equal measure to appreciate the natural world. Last night, she spoke with all of our winter athletes in the gym and started off by showing a video that featured her record-setting round-trip ascent of Mont Blanc in France in 2023. So I was watching the faces of the students, the athletes, while they started to realize that this tiny, bubbly person who was just introduced to them was also one of the most respected and accomplished sky runners in the world, who's won countless medals in some of the most physically and mentally demanding competitions that exist. I saw one young woman respond by saying, "Damn." We are so proud that Hillary Girardi represents SJA in the world. She's without question making it better with her love for her work and her zest for life. One of my favorite descriptions of Hillary that I've found is in the bio of one of her sponsors, Scarpa. They say this: "Her smile during races has become her trademark. Even in moments of maximum effort, she reminds herself how lucky she is to run in the mountains with a body that allows her to live extraordinary experiences through the sport she loves." Please join me in welcoming Hillary Girardi.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I think that we're going to start actually with just like a video introduction, also because it's fun to have videos in the morning. After living in Grenoble for 6 years, my partner Brad and I decided to move to Chamonix. The decision to do that was sort of to put mountains more at the center of our lives. For me, I love the mountains because it's a place where you can get so many different things. You can go to be inspired, to be in awe of the natural world, and also a place where you can play and a place where you can push yourself physically. So at first, trail running was really just a way to move through the mountains, but in 2012 I had a ski accident, and after that I needed to set some new mountain objectives, and I decided to sort of go back to the idea of trail racing. One of the really amazing things about trail running and racing in Europe is that there are so many different events to choose from. But I really quickly found that the type of event and the discipline that suited me the best was skyrunning. Is perfect for me because it really combines my love of being in the mountains and scrambling and moving through technical terrain with my love of moving fast and pushing yourself. My mind is focused and all my energy is concentrated on the feeling that I have and where I'm going to put my foot next and what I'm experiencing in that moment. I love the challenge of that mental game. Everything else falls away and I'm just left with what I'm doing, and it's a way to be present. My name is Hillary Girardi, and I'm a mountain runner. I don't know how to get rid of the logo. Maybe Taylor can help me. But thank you all for welcoming here. It's actually pretty strange for me to be up here in chapel at Fuller Hall in front of everyone. It's been years since I came into this building, and while I immediately accepted the invitation to come and speak to you all, I have to admit that I felt a little bit intimidated, maybe even scared, when I started thinking about what it would be like to speak in front of everyone. And for a moment, I found myself, almost like I was 15 again, getting up on stage for the first time, double checking that I had my notes with me, and triple checking that I was in dress code so that I wouldn't get detention. But since I got home last month, I feel like I've been constantly reminded by people that, in fact, I am pretty brave. In fact, like in some ways, I almost feel like, well, besides smiling maybe, that my trademark has become courage. Isn't it daring to run across a mountaintop like you just saw in the video? Isn't it maybe audacious to live in a different country, especially when I moved there, I didn't speak French yet? And all of those thoughts about bravery and audacity and courage got me to thinking about this conference that I was at a few years ago and a roundtable discussion that I was asked to be on the subject of courage. And now, to give you a little bit of context, you just saw some images of where I live. But the Chamonix Valley, it's this narrow valley. I live in a town that doesn't have more people living in it than St. Jay. And it's right at the foot of Europe's tallest mountain, on the borders of Switzerland and Italy and France. And it's a really nice place. It's why I chose to live there. And it's got tons of people who come there. And so it can draw some pretty big names, pretty, exciting events. And I remember that I was at this conference and I was looking at the list of speakers, and it included a retired military general and a politician from an opposition party in an authoritarian country. And I thought, wow, those people are really courageous. What could a trail runner possibly have to say about courage with people like that on stage? And I thought about myself in particular, and I didn't feel like an especially courageous person. But then as I started looking at the list of speakers a little bit more, I noticed something, and I noticed that we were all from different countries, and we all had different native languages. And I was curious, and I usually am a pretty curious person, but I was curious about the word courage in different languages and whether or not it carried the same baggage. For example, the word is the same in French and English, courage and courage. But my use of those two words is not exactly the same. And I was reminded that one of my first encounters with the word courage, or rather courage in French, incidentally came about at the same time that I started trail running. I was living in Grenoble, which I mentioned in the film, and I was relatively new to French. I studied Spanish when I was here, and I studied abroad in Thailand during my undergrad. And again, to kind of give you an image, Grenoble is this big cities, pretty sizable. It's totally flat, and it's surrounded by mountains. And one of them has these big ramparts that go 650 feet all the way up the hill, and there's a fortress on the top. It's called La Bastille. And people who live in the city go up there all the time. There's a cable car, and there are trails. And I remember the first time that I ran up there myself. My friends, they convinced me to join them, and we were running up, and it was so hard. And I was totally in awe of the fact that people might do that on a regular basis, and they might actually do it for fun. And I remember, so we were going, and people would spontaneously encourage us on the way up. They would say, bon courage. And even though at the time my French was a little bit rudimentary, I knew enough to kind of wonder at that linguistic comparison. As a native English speaker, I think I probably would have said, good luck. But even if ChatGPT might officially give bon courage as an acceptable translation for good luck, it somehow seemed different to me. Luck is a matter of chance, but courage comes from somewhere within. And I started running more and more, and still people would keep encouraging me, saying bon courage, and I came to really appreciate the encouragement that I got while I was running up the Bastille. And there were reminders that every day, every time I laced up my shoes and headed up that hill, I was committing, at my own personal scale, a small act of courage. And I think that the cool thing about courage is that I found that it compounds. Small acts of courage, what I call courage with a little c, allows you to build to bigger acts of courage. Courage with a big C. And while I was wrestling myself out of bed every morning, just like you guys all have to do, and trying to get a run in before work, and it felt so hard, I knew that I was building little courages with a little C, and it allowed me to build up to a bigger idea, a courage with a big C, like running a 25K or a 50K trail race. And I think, if anything, that's what I've learned about courage. We don't become courageous at the drop of a hat. I mean, some people might, but I can assure you that most of us do not. It's all about this accumulation of little C's that we habituate ourselves to, those small C courages, and prepare ourselves to build up. Now, this analogy is really obvious in my career as an athlete. It's all about the building blocks. We stack them up, those bricks, training, learning, gaining experience, racing, and it's the only way that I've gotten to where I am today, where I can envision or begin to envision a big C, like racing in or winning an international race or setting a speed record on Mont Blanc. Now, I think that I'm here today almost certainly because I'm an athlete and I've had some success. And as a general rule, that means that people listen to me. But yesterday when I was in the field house with the student athletes, somebody asked, what else are you passionate about? And I'd like to share some of my experience from my life outside of running and show you how this concept of courage can play out there. I grew up in St. Jay. I came from a family with strong convictions about environmental protection. And after I moved to France, I worked for years at the Research Center for Alpine Ecosystems, Créa Mont Blanc, it's called. It's an organization that explores how climate change is impacting mountain biodiversity and the landscapes that we love so much, the landscapes that made me want to move there and make so many people come to visit. Now, I don't work there anymore, but while I did, I learned a lot, and I became even more aware of how big our impact is on the planet and how fast things are changing and how urgent action is. And especially since I left that job, or I left that as my day job, I've started taking part in a bunch of different initiatives around climate change and climate action, in particular at the crossroads of environmentalism and outdoor sports. In France, I've actually kind of become a loud voice, maybe a squeaky wheel, and a leader within my sport in this area, challenging different events, stakeholders, brands to make meaningful changes. And if I'm totally honest, it's not always a comfortable position to be in. There are serious tensions about being a professional athlete and trying to be an environmentalist. We work for brands, was up on the screen a minute ago, that sell stuff that you probably don't truly need. We compete in events that require international travel, and people love to point their finger at you and say, hypocrite. And that's one of the reasons why more athletes don't speak up.
Other athletes often ask me, how do you do it? How do you confront an issue like climate change that's so big and so overwhelming and even scary? How do you find the chutzpah to speak up when you know that you might be criticized? And I think that the answer is actually pretty similar to, me running a 90-kilometer race. It's a scary thing to sign up for a race like that. And if you were to do it off the couch, it would be downright terrifying and probably pretty stupid, and you would fail. But you don't get to start. You don't get to the start line at the drop of the hat, and you certainly don't get to the finish line that way. You use your building blocks, your little C's of courage, your daily training to get you there. And the same is true of other issues like climate change. We're not going to get to solve the climate crisis through one big sudden leap, as cool as that might be. My sport isn't going to wake up one day and change how all of the trail running businesses, clubs, teams, and races operate. Even if we do need to act decisively and quickly at this point, nonetheless, we have to commit to small, daily courageous acts of facing climate change, examining our own lives, thinking about it, talking together, challenging our parents, our school, and finding solutions big and small. In this case, those small acts of daring, which is, for me, again, getting up every day, just like I get up every day to train, and thinking about climate change, studying it, integrating it into the discussions I have with my sponsors, my friends, and all of you. And all of those little C's allow us to prepare for a bigger C, which is maybe to take meaningful action on climate change in this analogy. And that's something that I've really loved about my sports experience as well. It's getting to understand and discover that transversality of all of it. And I think one last thought I want to leave you with, it comes from the activist Damon Davis, who said, "Fear is contagious, but courage is actually also contagious." When I started running, I found that it was a lot easier to get out on the trail every day if I set a meeting time with my friends. We signed up for races together, we shared our goals and our journey. I've also never felt so motivated, so empowered as when I've worked with other athletes in the climate activism space. When we work together, our courage grows. So I would say that we, and you, really have power when you commit to both carrying out and sharing your small and big C courages with one another, spreading them around and allowing every one of us to find the courage to face some of our biggest fears and our most daring objectives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hillary. We're so lucky to have you here, and we're so grateful that you're visiting us in this new year. Thank you so much for being here. She'll be here all day talking to classes, and we're just so fortunate. What an incredibly cool person. Let's give her another round of applause. All right, have a courageous day, everybody. Faculty.